Yes, 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 yes. It's the IPL 2021 West Indies edition. We're here. It's the Caribbean Cricket Podcast with our other partner in crime, the main man, Static Kartikeya himself. The IPL, What are we going to call him, Santoki? The IPL genius?
IPL genius, the go-to guy, the MVP, man. Carter Care. When we were talking about IPL, we had to get him on. He's an expert, not in just IPL, but T20 cricket in general. But we're looking forward to a good discussion. And Michelle, I think with the T20 World Cup in India being held later this year, I think this year's edition of the IPL takes on extra resonance for the West Indian players.
Most definitely. Yeah, you know, we sat down and we thought about, well, what can we do? We pretty much ignored, but no, that's a lie. We didn't ignore IPL last year, but we just thought, you know what, no one's really talking about West Indies and in the core West Indian cricketers in the context of IPL. And what have we always said, Santoki? You cannot win a franchise tournament unless you've got a West Indian in your ranks. So it was only right that we looked at it in the context of West Indies.
Yeah, so I guess firstly, if you're tuning in to us live, say hi, drop a comment. Any questions about West Indian players in the IPL, we'll be happy to answer them. And building on what Michelle said there, I think straight away we can rule out Royal Challengers Bangalore, who have made the crucial error of no West Indians in their side. Rajasthan Royals could go the same way if Jofra Archer doesn't show up for them. So, we've seen it. Rule 101 in T20 cricket, always have a West Indian, even if it's Andre Fletcher and Shafane Rutherford. Just make sure you've got a West Indian in your squad and you have every chance of winning.
Yeah, for real. Even if RCB had just got Chadwick Walton to just sit in reserve, that would have given them a chance. But
Chanda Paul Hemraj on the bench, they still would have had a chance.
but like Santoki says, if you're live with us, say hi in the chat so we can shout you out, and you're in this with us for the whole duration of this IPL 2021 West Indies edition. But Kartikeya, we've been calling you the IPL genius. You haven't even said anything. What are you saying, Kartikeya?
Yeah, man, excited for this year's edition. We've got, I think, West Indians in all teams except RCB and RR. So hopefully they pay the price for not picking anyone. And yeah, I think with the T20 World Cup coming up, like you said, there's some additional resonance. The whole tournament's going to be played in India this year, so a good chance to get used to the conditions, put in big performances, and I think live up to the reputation that West Indies players have been putting in season after season.
And Kartikeya, you were saying off air you support Sunrisers Hyderabad. What is the reason for supporting them then? Why are they your team?
It's my home team, so yeah, from the first edition, I support Sunrisers.
Cool, good stuff. So, Michelle,
who's your team? Who's your team? Wait, who's your team, Santoki?
You know what? I've kind of got an affinity for Mumbai Indians, only because when I was younger, I got a shirt for my sister who had gone to India and got Mumbai Indians t-shirt. So I was kind of committed from there. And then obviously with Kyron Pollard being such a mainstay in that team, I've kind of always had an affinity for them. Do you have a particular team, Michelle?
Yeah, my team is Chris Gale.
Oh yeah, big team there.
Wherever Chris Gale goes, I follow. But here we go. We got our first shout out. Listen what Contact's saying.
Oh, getting slandered, man. Who's Contact? I don't even know this guy. I'm getting slandered. Listen, for those of you watching, this isn't a choice. In the UK, hairdressers have been shut down since November, so this is a forced look at the moment. Michelle's forced me to go into visual mode, so I've been reluctantly appearing on camera. But hopefully, the next time you see me, I'll be here with a fresh trim.
Hussein, I don't know how you come to us. You probably come through Kartikeya's Twitter, but basically, just stay locked in. It's all about IPL, man. So, without any further ado, so what we're going to do today is we're going to run through the 9 West Indians that are in the tournament. Essentially, we're going to look at their role in the team, how we envisage their IPL is going to go. Are they even going to play? And which team has the advantage? And to be honest, guys, the best team to start with is the team that has the most West Indians on it, which is, of course, the Punjab Kings, who have 3 West Indians. That already makes them favourites for the competition. So all of you are chucking questions in. So, for example, Samir here is saying, what do you expect about Andre Russell? We're going to get to him. We're going to get to all West Indians, but we're going to start off with the Punjab Kings first, and we're going to start off with the main man. Christopher Henry Gale, the universe boss, 41 years old and still getting IPL contracts at the age of 41. Last year's IPL, pretty much, I'd say that most people wrote him off and said he was going there almost like as a almost he was going there as like an advertising tool. We've got Chris Gale, but he's not going to play any cricket. And he didn't actually play. If I remember rightly, he didn't even play in the first 7 games. Granted, some of it was illness. But when he finally got his chance in the Punjab team right at the latter half of the competition, he came in and hit numbers in the context of being 41 years old. He hit numbers that I would say, guys, we have to give ultimate respect to, given his age and given his fitness. Off you go. Let's start off there.
Yeah, I think what you said is spot on, Mashal. 41 years old for a top order batsman to play in the IPL is pretty much unheard of. King 11 Punjab didn't get off to a great start without him last season. And then they brought him in after the halfway mark, and you saw the immediate impact he made. Obviously, the main talking point is his position move to number 3. We know Chris Gale is an opener through and throughout his career, last 20 odd years. They've moved him to number 3. He's adapted to that, as Chris Gale does in every situation. And then what's also interesting is this format, this blueprint, has gone across now. So first in the Pakistan Super League, he played in number 3. And now for West Indies, we've seen him coming in after Simmons and Evan Lewis at number 3. So he's someone who's adapted and taken a role which is unfamiliar. So it'd be interesting, Kartikeya, do you think it was a right move to move him to number 3? Or do you still think he's more effective as an opener at this point?
I mean, like you said initially, numbers like averaging 41 at a strike rate of 140 at the age of 41, that's unheard of, because I think last year David Warner struggled to start the tournament the way he does, and Warner's in his mid-30s. So the fact that Gale at this stage of his career is still putting out those numbers is pretty insane. And added to that, he's playing in a new position at number 3. I don't think he's played at number 3 in an entire season any time in his career before. Coming to your question, I think his best spot's probably opening the batting, right? Because that's what he's done all his career, and that's where his credentials stand. But I think the way he adapted to number 3, coming in around the 7th over post power play and starting fast, was something I didn't expect, because over the last 4 or 5 years, Gale's cultivated this reputation of being a slow starter. I think he starts with around a strike rate of 18 his first 10 balls and then picks up. But what we saw last year is he started showing intent right at the outset, because the platform was already laid by the Punjab openers. And I think he's pretty much a genius in this format. I don't think we can go beyond that, because he reads the game situation better than anyone else. And that's exactly the reason why he's able to perform time and again despite some limitations creeping into his game, because he's not the best player against off spin in the league. He's not the best player against proper fast bowling in the league, because slow reflexes at this age. But the fact that he's able to read the game so well, assess the situation, and come in and put in performances day in, day out, I think we really need to respect that.
I think what also helps him at Punjab is obviously KL Rahul and Agarwal will obviously put up big runs quickly. We saw them prolific run scorers last season. So he comes in almost with that pressure taken off. So he is being able to play with more freedom. But Michelle, what was your view of Chris Gale then? Do you see him as a number 3 as his rightful place now that he's reaching senior status?
Well, I mean, I was slightly concerned. Granted, this is about IPL, but I was slightly concerned about his performances at number 3 for West Indies, and certainly in the Caribbean. The groundswell of opinion is that if he's going to play T20s for the West Indies, he should be playing as an opener. He doesn't have to for Punjab. My concern for Gale in this year's edition is, firstly, I think he starts. I think he's earned the right to start based on what happened last year. As Sean has said in the chat here, Gale looked good at the PSL2 before disappearing to go and play for West Indies. But then this is a question here from Hussein. Does Gale start ahead of Milan? Now, in the Punjab's overseas players, we know that Puram is starting. That's a definite. I don't know if Chris Jordan is a definite, but let's say Chris Jordan is a definite. Then you have a whole bunch of them
starting.
Jai Richardson. I knew I forgot someone. So Jai Richardson. Then you have a whole bunch of overseas players. And we'll get to the next person in a minute, Fabian Allen. But let's just deal with this question. Does Gale start ahead of Milan? For me, obviously, yes. But does he?
Yeah.
Should? Oh, no, you know what? Not does he? Should he? Is the question.
Yes and yes, because I think Gale's first season at Punjab was 2018. They didn't start him. They brought him in mid-season, and he revived the season. In 2019, they said they're going to play him the entire season. And the same thing happened last year. I think it's going to repeat again. They realized they brought him in too late last year. They're not going to make the same mistake again. Should he start? I think yes, because Milan's not got as much experience in India. So if you want someone for subcontinental tracks, Gale starts. They could always reassess later, but I think, honestly, if Gale has a decent start to the season, he's going to play the entire one.
Now, that's interesting. So you just said Carter K is going to play the whole tournament, but Contact, the one who puffed off Santoki's caveman look, says that Gale can't play the whole tournament. And I would be inclined to agree with that. He's surely going to have to rest some games, just because he's old. Santoki, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think they'll bring in him to make an impact, but also Milan, as much as we're writing him off on the subcontinent, he is, or I don't know if he still is, but he was number one T20 international player in the ranking. So he's a quality player who can get the runs as well. So there'll be pressure on Gale, but as we know with Chris Gale, he thrives on pressure. If he knows his spot is under scrutiny, he'll put up the performances. But I don't think they'll make the same mistake as last year and bringing him in when it's too late. They'll start him this time.
Just bringing in this comment here. Gale's cool. Have to start at Bangalore. Gale, KL, and also I didn't see KL before. Gale, KL, and Mayank know the conditions better than anybody. We're saying anything to add to that before we move on?
Yeah, Gale's return to Chinnaswamy is probably going to be one of the headlines of the tournament because he is the icon there. So, yeah, he knows the conditions better than anyone else. I would be surprised if they don't play him in that leg because I think they play 5 games at Chinnaswamy at the end of the tournament. I think he's locked in for that leg at least.
Yeah, 100%. So that's we've got a couple more comments which I better just throw up. If KL and Man go the attacking way, Malan can definitely start. He can be the bridge between KL. So lots of you throwing out here that Gale's not necessarily starting. You know, we can come back to that one. People are saying that Gale's not definitely going to start, but somebody who is definitely going to start as the number 1 overseas pick will be Nicolas Puram. Now, Puran, it's hard to forget that Puran's actually already had 2 IPL editions. But the way he went last year, it was almost as if people thought he'd just turned up in the IPL last year. But last year was his full IPL, so to speak, if you want to see it that way. Now, Kartikeya, I know you think the world of Nicolas Puran. So do I. I was about to try and be contrary. No, so do I. Puran is amazing. No, Puran's ability is amazing. But you know what? Let me start this way with Puran.
Yeah.
What's his weakness? Because we all know what he can do. So it seems like a waste of time talking about how good he is and what he can do. What's his weakness? Let's start there with Puran.
Yeah, so like Gale, like Pollard, like Russell, Puran's not the complete player. He has his weaknesses too, and that is mainly against hard lengths, against pace, against high quality pace. That's where you can bring about his downfall. And Puran hasn't developed the game sense that Gale or Pollard has at this stage of his career. If the opposition is going to bowl their best bowler, he's going to go on and take him on. That's Puran right now. And I think people emphasize intent in T20, and it's very important, obviously, because strike rate is such an important factor. But I think Puran can maintain that strike rate by being more selective. Gale's built an entire T20 career around being selective. Pollard's built an entire T20 career around being selective. So what I think Puran can do is, if the opposition brings on a Jasprit Bumrah, Kankisa Rabada, he should be able to play out that over and back his ability against the rest. Because, like you said, we know his ability against spin. We know his ability against medium pace. If he recognizes the weakness in his game, plays out those 1 or 2 overs, and takes on his matchups, that's going to make him the ultimate T20 player. I'm not saying he didn't have a great season last year, but it's going to be challenging because I think last year was the first time franchises actually saw him play an entire season, and they went out and bowled Marcus Stoinis. They went out bowled part-timers to him in over 70-11. And Puran's not someone who's going to mess around against those guys. 70-11 is usually the lowest scoring phase in T20, but Puran's strike rate in that phase is 199. That's unheard of. So people are going to see that now. People are going to see their intent he's going to come on with, and they're going to bowl their best bowlers. So it's going to be a more challenging season for Puran. I want to be optimistic, but I think if he struggles, it'll be for the better, because he's going to realize that he has to upgrade his game in order to be the world beater that he's destined to be.
Excellent synopsis there, Kartikeya. Where does Puran come, though, in the order? So if we're saying whether it's Milan or Gale, so obviously in the chat people are disagreeing about whether Gale plays all the games or where Milan comes in. Is Puran number 4? Now, the reason I ask this is because, again, harping back to what we saw with the West Indies in both the ODIs and the T20s with Puran, I had huge question marks about them almost, and even Trinidad actually in the Super 50. I know it's not the same format, but I'm just talking about the evolution of Puran as a player. Should a player like him be coming any lower than 4 in any format of cricket?
No, I don't think he's equipped for that right now, because, like I said, he struggles against those hard lengths, and he's going to be bombarded with that at the back end of the game. So if he comes in the death overs, that takes away his freedom of even being selective. So I don't think he should bat anyway below 4. He should be locked in at 4, honestly. And even at 4, last year, towards the latter half of the season, they had Mayank, KL Rahul, and Gale, and they used to bat 12 overs because all those guys are innings builders. So Puran ended up coming pretty late, and that his value almost dropped down. I mean, he still kept putting in performances, but it wasn't those 50s or 60s. It was just quick fire 20s or 30s. So yeah, I think that way, because of the top 3, whether it's Gale or Milan, all 3 batsmen have the tendency to play long innings. So Puran can't go anywhere below 4.
Yeah. But I agree with what Kartikeya was saying. I think IPL's so sophisticated in its analysis, people will have worked him out his weaknesses and got the matchups ready for him. Because as you said, last season was the first time we've always known Puram as someone with potential. Kyron Pollard privately arranged for him to have a trial with Mumbai Indians a few years ago based on that potential. Last season was the first time he played a full season. We saw what we was capable about, but the thing about IPL, why it's so hard for players to maintain consistency throughout the years in IPL, is because teams, they pay analysts, quality analysts, to work out your weaknesses and get on that. So it's whether he can adapt this season. But I agree with Kartikeya, he shouldn't be batting lower than 4, especially with, as you said, the length, especially with Gale at 3, how long he'll bat for and soak up the balls. Puran needs to come in at 4 and make that impact, and he's capable of it. He's 5 in 4, so I think he should stay there.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. Puran struggled against Jamira in both T20s and ODIs. And that's what I was saying. In terms of game sense, I think he batted out the spinners in that second ODI where he redeemed himself after that slow start. And I don't think he should have done that, because he should know his ability against Jamira is diminished. So that's where I think he needs to be more smarter, taking on the matchups that he's more suited to take on.
Indeed. I mean, we could probably try and break down Puran more, but I think, to be honest, Kartikeya, your synopsis at the top, Puran, says everything for me. I don't think we need to go in depth with Puran. The only question mark for me is last year. So looking at Puran's stats from last year, 353 runs, 35, don't know who looks at averages, but whatever, 35. But more importantly, strike rate 169. The only question mark for me is, can Puran go better than that? Now, as Santoki says, he's going to be analysed to death by all the other franchises, and it's going to be interesting to see how Puran goes. The sky's the limit for him, but he may have a dip this year. Who knows? He may actually have a dip this year and not be able to hit last year's heights, but we shall see. Now, the other person that Punjab have is Fabian Allen. Now, earlier on, we already said in discussing Gale, so we believe that Gale, Puran, Jai Richardson are locks for 3 of the overseas places. Before we went on air, we briefly discussed Fabian Allen, and I just shouted out, he's not even going to get a game this year. Now, I want to clarify that I want him to get a game, but I just don't know how he fits in the side. Now, before I put this to both of you and to the crowd, or all the good crowds who are locked in live with us for this session, and thank you for all the comments, by the way. Keep throwing them in. Love it all. Fabian, so let's talk about the series versus Sri Lanka. Listen, and even the Super 50, Fabian's bowling has improved. Let's focus on that first and foremost. And it's almost as if Fabian realizes that his bowling has to improve. As things stand right now, purely looking at it from a West Indies perspective, Fabian is a lock for the World Cup as a second spinner because his bowling has improved. We know what Fabian can do as a lower order hitter. Is his bowling, and I'm coming to you first, Kartikeya, is his improved bowling good enough to get him in the side as a fourth overseas player? We know what his hitting can do. It's just the bowling. No, boy.
I think his bowling has improved. Yeah, like you said, his bowling has definitely improved. He's starting to put more revs on the ball. He's varying his pace more. But I don't know. Overseas finger spinners in the IPL, there's no one. There's no one else. So it's not a hit at Allen's ability. It's just that there's no other finger spinner in the league who gets a game. So it's just the market supply there. So I still think he could get a game somewhere because, the alternatives for Allen are Meredith or Henriquez. And I don't think Henriquez's part-time bowling is any better than Allen's. I don't think Meredith can bat at 8 in their setup. Or rather, I should rephrase it. I don't think Jai Richardson is an IPL number 7. So whoever they go with, they're either going to sacrifice their batting or their bowling. So if they start the season with Jai Richardson and Meredith and they see that their batting depth is not sufficient, then they could swap over to Allen. And if they start with Fabian and they don't get enough out of the fifth bowler, then they probably have to switch to the other combination. So
right, pause there. One second, Clark. Yeah. So are you saying, I just want to jump in because somebody else made that point. Are you saying that the problem is that you don't trust Fabian to bowl 4? Is that what your issue is? Is your issue that he can't? Do you see where I'm coming from? Or is it that you could only have him in if he's a 5th option? Is that
he is going to be the 5th option anyway. So
okay, fair enough.
It's about whether I think he's a good 5th bowler. I'm not saying he can't bowl 4. He's going to have to bowl 4 regardless. But is he going to give you enough value to be the second spinner in the team? Because in India, you're going to have to get value out of your second spinner. So is he good enough to do that? I'm not sure yet. But I think he should start, honestly, because I don't think Jai Richardson at number 7 gives them any security, especially to the top order. So it's going to have a ripple effect even on the top order batting. So, I think they should start with Allen, honestly.
You had Jai as a definite starter, right? No matter what.
Yeah, Jai is definitely starting.
Right, so if you see what Hussein's put here, so Hussein has said Gail, Puran, Jai, and then one from Milan, Meredith, Enriquez. Is that what you're... Forget Fabian for a minute. Is that what you think is likely to happen?
Yeah, the first 3 are likely. No, I think it's Gail or Milan. Puran's locked in. Jai is locked in. And then they go with one of Meredith, Moses, and Fabian.
Interesting. Santoki, sorry, I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, no, I think Fabian will get a chance, partly because Punjab Kings have spent a lot of time promoting him. If you noticed, he's been getting a lot on social media, a lot of interviews and stuff, which makes me think that they're impressed by him, because you wouldn't promote someone in that way if they weren't even going to start. But like Kartikeya said, the bowling could be seen as a weakness. We saw West Indies bowl him early, get in the T20s against Sri Lanka, and that almost felt like they were trying to prepare him for the IPL by helping him out by doing that. And we've seen his versatility. We saw against Sri Lanka the caught and bowled, brilliant caught and bowled, and then he finished the match, one of the matches with a barrage of 6s, and he's an excellent fielder. So as we've always said on the pod, he's a 3-dimensional player, and I think that kind of player is still rare in world cricket. So he will get his opportunity this season for Punjab Kings, and it's just about making the most of it. I think last year, with him missing the CPL, coming to Sunrisers out of form, he was never going to get a chance. But this time he will get a chance, and he's the type of player he'll make the most of it.
Yeah, and I've underrated Fabian's bowling, but I think in the T10 league, he was the second leading wicket taker. And his defensive bowling was brilliant. And I think he has a very good cricket mind because even in the CPL in 2019, when he had that MVP season, he kept coming in when Sankits was 60 for 5 every game. And he kept bringing them up to 160, 170. To bat with the tail, that requires proper thinking. It's not just blind slogging. So I think if he can transfer that to his bowling, bowl defensive, bowl smart, I think he should take his bowling up to a level where he can lock in 4 overs for his team.
He's not on our list, right? But he is Caribbean. Now, Sean says Jordan might start. Now, he is West Indian. So let's just have a quick discussion here. We've not included him at all in any discussions about an overseas player playing. I know we just had a bad time of it versus India in some of the limited overs cricket. But so what? We're just saying that he won't feature at all then? If we're saying that Fabian Allen can barely feature, is Chris Jordan ahead of him or not?
I think between Meredith, Jai, and Jordan is almost a lottery. They're going to keep rotating because it's Jai and Meredith's first season. So I don't expect them to crack the IPL straight away. Jordan's played previously with mixed success. So it's going to be rotation all the way through. So I don't think that's a huge deal. He's probably going to get a couple of games here and there.
This is I'm going to quickly throw this one. Couple last comments, then we'll move on. In fact, loads of comments coming in after Kartikeya said that. But so quickly, this one, Kartikeya, this one's for you.
Yes, I think there's a chance because if Gale doesn't start the season well, they might see that their batting lacks depth and hence replace Gale with Fabian. That's a possibility. Yeah, I'll keep that open.
Cool. Then we've got Meredith 145 plus pace on alongside with Shami. Sure, it will make an impact. So yeah, everyone's saying.
Yeah, I think I rate him very highly. So yeah.
Chatil says Jordan's probably the second choice overseas pacer.
He's got reputation on his side. So.
And then saying is that Jordan is a deaf specialist. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty to discuss with Punjab. By default of Chris Gale being in that team, that's the team I'm following this year. But as you can see, I would love Fabian Allen to get a game. I would hope that because of just simple rotation, I would assume he at least gets one game this year. And like Santoki said, last year was a write-off because he didn't play CPL. This year, I'd like to think he's going to get at least one game. But that's the Punjab team, people. We could go on and on and on. But let's jump to Kartikeya's team, Sunrisers, and let's talk about the one West Indian on Sunrisers, which is, of course, former West Indies Test captain and former ODI captain and former T20 captain. No, not T20, ODI captain, Jason Holder. Do you know what, Santoki? I'm going to start with you, actually, with Jason Holder, because I think with Jason, when he obviously jumped in last year, who was he a replacement for? Was it Mitch Marsh? I can't even remember.
Mitch Marsh.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So when he jumped in as a replacement last year, it was almost as if people thought that was the first time he was playing IPL. And I think people forget that Jason has actually played IPL before. It wasn't very good, but the point is he played before.
So
last
three
year,
IPL
however,
teams, 3.
Yeah, sorry, even that. But last year, in terms of sheer numbers, was a revelation for him in IPL. And even if we look at how he bowled versus Sri Lanka in the T20s, and you could even argue ODIs to an extent, Jason, for me, seems to have developed a better white ball game. Santoki, you first.
Yeah, I think Masho, you're spot on there. Jason Holder initially broke through as a T20 player. His height naturally gives him an advantage in the format. But he's someone who, as captain of the West Indies red ball side, he essentially sacrificed his white ball abilities to kind of focus on tests. Now we've seen him come back. He came in, I think when he came in for Mitchell Marsh, people weren't really excited by it. He was seen as a bits and pieces all-rounder. Could do a bit of bowling, bit of batting, but nothing exceptional. But we saw him play 7 games exceptional. I think he got 14 wickets, and he was a real revelation for Sunrisers. And that's kind of been encapsulated by the fact that they've retained him for this season. And as you said, Masho, I think he's been reinvigorated in terms of West Indies white ball cricket. He's got a whole new energy. hold confidence. His variations have certainly improved. So naturally, the IPL has massively improved his game, and by default, improved West Indies' chances of retaining the World Cup. So I'm happy Holder's there, and I think he'll definitely be a regular. I would be surprised if he didn't play every single game for Sunrisers this season.
Sorry, Kartikeya, over to you.
Yeah, so my agenda last year was Sunrisers played their first 8 games without Holder. They won, I think, 4. They played the last 8 games with Holder. They won 6. So you play your West Indian, you start winning games. But no, I think I didn't expect those kind of numbers from Holder last year, because we never saw him as someone who seriously looked to develop his white ball game around the time he became the number 1 test all-rounder or whatever. But I think last year he started bowling more Yorkers, and his accuracy with those Yorkers improved as well, because for some reason West Indian bowlers don't seem to like bowling Yorkers with depth. But he went out there and he kept doing that. So his value outside the power play was something I was surprised by, because in the power play we know what he can do. He swings the ball, he seams the ball, etc. But his accuracy in other phases was very impressive. And I think his batting has also improved, especially since he started batting at 4 in the CPL, if you remember. I think that's when he started taking his T20 batting seriously. And those returns, even if they didn't show up immediately in the IPL, we saw him do well in the Big Bash right after that. And in the Sri Lanka series just recently. So his white ball game has definitely improved. Is he a sure shot IPL starter? Maybe, maybe not. But he's a quality backup.
Right, love that you just ended there. So let's go to this question from Clive. Big up Clive, by the way. Clive said, well, this is for you, Kartikeya, but Jason Holder is definitely not a sure starter for Sunrisers, given most of their games are played in Chennai and Delhi. But before you answer that, Kartikeya, I mean, just for those, I mean, I'm fairly certain that everyone who's on this in the crowd watching today knows about IPL, but let's just recap who the overseas players are for Sunrisers, because they're stacked. You got Dave Warner, Johnny Bairstow. I'm not even including Holder. So Warner, Bairstow, Williamson, Nabi, Rashid Khan, Mujib, and Jason Roy. I don't even know how Jason gets in that side as an overseas player, because the 2 of those players are definites, right? So David Warner and Rashid Khan are playing no matter what, right? So Santoki, do you even see Jason? I mean, you would think he has to based on what happened last year, but I don't know. Do you see Jason even playing that much?
I think he'll get a start for Sunrisers. Kartikeya might disagree, but I think he'll definitely play above Williamson just because he offers a more dynamic role. Roy will obviously be on the bench, so you could. The thing is, I think it's a toss-up, Holder or Nabi, but I think they'll go for Holder.
Bairstow though. You're putting Bairstow and Roy on the bench? No way, no chance.
No, it'll be Warner, Bairstow, Rashid Khan, and Holder, or Holder Nabi.
Boy, what are you saying, Kartikeya?
On paper, who's Jason a better T20 player than in that team? Probably Jason Roy is probably the only player on paper that he has more value over. But yeah, I think like you said, Warner and Rashid Khan are locked in. Kane Williamson had a very good end to last season, so you could use the same argument as we did with Holder and sneak him in. Bairstow just had an incredible series in India. So I think, coming back, I think Holder, the value that he adds is he's the only overseas fast bowler in the team. They've got 3 overseas spinners, Rashid, Mujib, Nabi. So they're going to be stacked for one place. Warner, Bairstow, and Roy, all overseas openers. Williamson is the only middle order bat, but Bairstow could slide down too. So they could have 2 middle order overseas spots. That leaves us with only 1 seam bowling all-rounder. So if they want a seam bowling all-rounder, Holder comes in. Do they need a seam bowling all-rounder on slower tracks? Probably not, but I think he'll get a game in at least a faster track. So yeah, I see him getting at least 4 or 5 games this season.
Interesting. This is super interesting. So a couple of loads of you jumping in the comments about Jason here. So we've got Holder's bowling will be an asset in certain pitches, especially when he bowls with Bhuvi, Rashid, and batters will try to go after him, kind of like Thakur of Team India. Kartik says his range versus spin is very good. We haven't even spoken about his batting in white ball cricket significantly, which I think has improved massively. This isn't about Jason, but this is about the team. Who's opening? Well, it's Warner and someone, isn't it?
I don't know. Yeah, genuinely, I don't know, because they could go with Warner and Saha, as they did towards the end of last season.
True. Yeah.
They could go with Warner and Bairstow. They could go with Warner and Williamson. There's so many combinations, and I think it's pointless predicting right now because they're going to come out with something completely different from what we predict. I think it's essentially a lottery, so it's whatever they see fit in their first game.
Sorry, at this point here, I've forgotten this. The quarantine.
Because he landed today.
Holder's only just got there, right?
Yeah.
So Chatil's kind of right here to say he won't start because of the late quarantine, and then it all depends on performance.
Yeah.
That's a good point from Chatil. I'd even forgotten that myself. Contact says Warner, Kane, and really, you don't have Kane starting no matter what. I'm not sure about that. Have you not got Kane Williamson starting no matter what?
In theory, he's been one of the best middle order bats in the league over the last 3 years.
I guess then, fair
Does
enough.
that mean he's a better T20 batsman than Bairstow at present? That's debatable. So I think they might see him as a starter, but I don't. So it could go either way.
There's Vicky's team for all of the crowd to see. You'll see that there is no Holder in that team. There's no love for Holder for anyone. No one's loving Holder right now. What else have we got? Jason Holder for 14 games will provide you at least 14 wickets and a floater roll at 6 alongside with Nabi. Okay, so we got one support for Jason Holder here. And what else we got? More. We got one team with Holder in. Basically, Sunrisers are kind of stacked here. Is what this is looking like.
Oh, they're stacked, and that 11 reminds me. They've Bhuvneshwar, Sandeep, and Natarajan were all similar bowlers to Holder. Don't want to compare their batting ability, but they're all the medium pace type. They rely on accuracy over pace, so that could deter them from playing Holder because they played Holder last season after Bhuvi got injured. So with Bhuvi coming back, that could be another factor in them leaving out Holder.
Okay.
If anyone's wondering why I'm not putting more comments up, it's because basically we have to move on. So I see them all. But can I just remind everyone, if you're in the chat, you can, of course, interact with each other. If we don't put them up, by all means, cuss people out in the chat as well. And we'll put up the cuss outs and all sorts.
Shout out everyone who's just joining us. We see your comments. Just so you're aware, we've already discussed Punjab Kings and Sunrisers. So anything else for any of the other franchises, feel free to ask us. We'll be moving through each team.
Right,
Michelle, who's next? Who we got next?
Who's next? It's the GOAT. Technically, it's the GOAT. Once upon a time, if you said who is the West Indian GOAT in T20 cricket, once upon a time you would have said it was Chris Gale, and there is no one else.
Yeah.
Then at some points you might have said Sunil Narain. But in 2021, when we talk GOATs in West Indies, another point you might have said Andre Russell. But I think the GOAT right now is Kyron Pollard.
Yeah.
His T20 year since cricket returned for CPL, from CPL through to IPL, through to West Indies, back through to IPL, is there a better player of T20 in the world than him right now? There's a big statement, but seriously, is there a better lock-in than Pollard in T20 cricket where you can guarantee that he's going to do something for you? So, I mean, this should be a quick one. This should be a quick one because what do we need to say about Pollard? But one thing I do just want to throw to you guys, I'm not. So for those who are watching, the crowd who are watching, if it's not already obvious, I'm not a big IPL guy. But even I last year looked at Pollard's numbers in IPL and thought, wait a minute, why aren't the platitudes ringing out even higher for this guy? So let me just remind people, Pollard played 16 matches for Mumbai Indians last year, 268 runs at 53 at a strike rate of 191, right? This was off the back of a CPL where he dominated the whole CPL as well. Yes, it was a low-quality tournament, but he dominated the whole of CPL, and he's obviously leading the West Indies white ball teams to something that looks like some level of success. What is there that what can we say about Pollard that hasn't already been said? Carter K, what do you want to say about Pollard?
I don't know, because like you said, CPL was a low quality tournament, but who averaged 40 plus in the tournament at that kind of strike rate? No one. It was only Pollard. And in last year's IPL, he came in and he played in the UAE where he doesn't have a great record. He cracked that. So honestly, at this point in his career, he's kind of peaking, which is pretty absurd because we didn't think he would reach such heights after that start of his career he had in probably 2010-11. That's when he was first picked by Mumbai under Darren Bravo's recommendation. So
yeah,
it's actually come a long way now. And I think
from
Pollard's a serial winner, Mumbai is serial winners, and they just complement each other so well, right? Because Pollard wins so many titles because he plays for Mumbai, and Pollard's clutch in almost every final that Mumbai plays. So, yeah, he's a serial winner, and he's in a team of serial winners.
I think shout out Clive with we need a statue of Pollard. If you think about it, though, how many overseas players can say they've been one franchise guys? He just always played for Mumbai Indians. And if you look at it as well, like we mentioned, Trimbago and Mumbai are regarded as the two strongest franchises at the moment in World T20 cricket. Pollard's central to both. I think what stands out for Pollard is, one, tactically, he just has that ability to adapt. I mean, we talk about Darren Sammy being a good captain. I think Pollard surpasses him in terms of being able to adapt to match situations. And the other thing I like about him is he puts his trust in other players. So he'll take the pressure off. He'll take the pressure off if needs be. He'll bowl 2 overs if needs be. But other than that, he will let players play to their strength, and he trusts them, backs them. And you can see that in Mumbai and at Trimbago, other players look up to him and they respect him because he's done it for so long, and he's got so much experience. He's just all round, as you said, Michelle, at the top of this, he's the GOAT at the moment in West Indian cricket, which you might not necessarily have thought 5 years ago, but he's just adapted and evolved. And at the moment, he's the ultimate T20 players in terms of everything he offers a franchise.
One thing I've always been wary of, and maybe actually having just put up Clive's comment, so Pollard in over 16 to 20 has scored at 13.3 runs per over and got out once every 35 balls. The guy was the difference between Mumbai being good in the death, which they are, and then being elite in the death last season, which is, thank you, Clive, for the stats. One thing, though, and maybe actually, Clive, what I'm about to say backs up why he does. But I've always thought Pollard bats too low, both for the West Indies and for Mumbai. I'm sorry, let me clarify. Yes. I get why he does. I do understand why he does. But when you have somebody that can basically wreak havoc the way he does, why leave him to come in as low as he does? You two got any thoughts on that one?
I think Mumbai play him low because they have a stacked top order, honestly. They have Hardik Pandya, they have Ishan Kishan and Suryakumar Yadav had breakout seasons last year. And they have proper openers in Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock. So they probably see Pollard as someone who can finish games, has the maturity to bat deep through the end. But yeah, I agree with you in that Pollard probably adds more value when he can be more selective up the order because, like we said, he's one of the smartest cricket brains going around. So I think one of Pollard's USPs in T20 cricket is actually pulling his team up from collapses. There's so many times where his team is 30 for 5 or 40 for 5 and he pulls them up to significant totals. And again, like I said earlier, with Allen, such players are very rare as they come because it's just not ability. You need to read the match situation so well. So I think that's something that's often forgotten with Pollard because he bats so low.
And obviously, Clive and you obviously have been going back and forth in the DMs. And Clive saying he thinks that Pollard should be faced with more spin because he can literally destroy them. We saw what Pollard did to Hayden Walsh in CPL. Hayden Walsh hasn't been the same since Pollard did that to him. Pollard did him dirty in CPL.
I saw a comment saying, I don't know if it was true or not, in that Fidel Edwards is with the Mumbai Indians.
Yeah, I saw that one, but I don't know if it's true. I don't know if there's any truth in that.
I haven't seen anything, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, Kartikeya, would you say Mumbai Indians are favourites to retain the IPL this year then?
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think anyone's going to compete with them.
Okay.
Are they going to win? I don't know, because anything can happen in the final. But are they favourites? Yeah, by far.
So we're saying Mumbai again. But I mean, we could go on for Pollard, but what do we need to say?
Yeah.
We know how good he is. Here's the next person I want to move to.
Go on.
This is an interesting one. You two, by the way, Kartikeya and Santoki don't know what order I'm doing people in. So let's see if you can guess who I'm going with. This next guy, I'm surprised he's still got an IPL contract. I want to say he's technically finished at the highest level.
Dwayne Bravo.
Yes. Oh. But you thought I was who do you think I was going to say in the Rhine? Kartikeya.
I thought you were going to say Hetmeyer.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. Hetmeyer's coming through. Don't worry about Hetmeyer. Wait till I get to Hetmeyer. No. DJ Bravo, is who I'm on about. When I say I'm surprised he's got an IPL contract, obviously in the same way how Pollard is Mumbai, DJ is Chennai, and it's almost like with Dhoni, it's almost like they will get a contract until they officially say they're done, right? But of course, I'm not saying that DJ is done, and let's not forget that last year he was injured. In fairness, he had to pull out with an injury, and we've seen him come back for the West Indies. And much like with Gale, DJ shouldn't be as good as he still is at the age that he is, given that everybody has seen what he does. So I'm not saying he's not an effective player. That's not the point I'm making. But I'm just wondering if he still commands a starting place just because he's DJ Bravo. There, I'll throw it out like that.
Yeah, I think
who wants to take that one?
Go on, Kartikeya.
He's probably got a contract this year because of loyalty, honestly, like you said. These kind of players, I think, even Shane Watson got a contract last year, and they sent him out only when he retired on his own terms. And it's going to be the same with Bravo unless he has a disastrous season. So, yeah, Bravo's starting because they don't have death bowlers. Well, they could have got a better death bowler in the auction if they wanted to. So, I don't see that as a massive reason, because if you look at Bravo's death bowling stats in the last few years, that's on the decline as well. So, in terms of cricketing value, I don't see what he adds. In the West Indies team, he bats at 9 or 10? Yeah, I think he's going to bat at 11 in the CSK team.
Yeah, Sean says Bravo's batting finished.
Yeah.
I think it is, I genuinely think it's done. I think his batting's done.
Yeah, I think what could work in Bravo's favour is, again, I think it's a repetitive team I keep bringing up with all these players. I think his cricketing smarts is unmatched, because someone with Bravo's pace who bowls 120 to 130 in T20 cricket, no one survives. Bravo is the only death bowler in the world to have survived with such limited skill set, and that's because he has so many variations and he knows when to use each of them. So, even with his limited ability, if he gets a 14-game season, he gets match practice throughout. Yeah, he's a legend. So, if he gets enough match practice under his belt, he's probably gonna put in a decent season. But is he someone who's a sure shot starter in the team? Probably not.
Yeah.
Interesting. Unlike with all the people we've discussed so far, so those who've just jumped in, we've already discussed Gale, Allen, Holder, Pollard, Puram. Not a lot of Chennai fans in here. And it's interesting to hear Kartikeya say that he doesn't think Bravo starts. I think he does start. That's the thing.
I think he does start, actually, yeah. I think he does start, but he could drop out mid-season, yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think what West Indian players have done in T20 formats is they've kind of changed the idea of what we thought was capable. I mean, it's no disgrace for Bravo to be declining at 37. Most players, all-rounders, wouldn't be playing in IPL at 37. It's just what we've come to expect from these guys. We expect them to always be at the pinnacle, but there's always going to be a time where they drop. I think Bravo's, obviously Gale's playing to 41, 42. I don't think Bravo will get to that stage. I think potentially this could be his last season in the IPL, in terms of getting that contract with Chennai. But it's his records is still been impeccable throughout the IPL. So it's no disrespect to the player. It's just age catches up with everyone at some point. And I think for Bravo, I'd imagine potentially after this World Cup, we could see him retire from T20 formats.
To be honest, though, I have to respect Dwayne's competitiveness because he doesn't need to be playing anymore. To be honest, if you were DJ Bravo, you could make a song for every IPL edition and just live off the money from the song you've made, and you know that you're getting 1 million views no matter what the song is, even if it's trash. You're getting a million views of it. So, he doesn't even need to play cricket, but to give him his due, and it's the same reason why he came back to play for West Indies. He still has that drive to want to do well at the highest level, and that's ultimately why he is where he is.
Yeah,
definitely.
Just take this comment before we move on. So Bravo's death bowling should be judged versus better batting lineups. It shouldn't be judged versus the test batting side. Okay, yeah, fair enough in terms of the Sri Lankan team. And to be honest, I didn't even mention him versus Sri Lanka. I didn't take that to be any kind of reference point.
And I think where we have to start here is he's going to probably keep out Lungi Ngidi, Imran Tahir, and Mitchell Sand in the team if he starts. So I think that explains it. Yeah. Because Moeen Ali is locked in, Faf du Plessis is locked in, Sam Curran is locked in. So he's going to keep out Tahir, Sandner, or Ngidi, and all three probably add more value than him. So
yes, actually, now I see your point, Carter, in that he might start, but he might then drop out.
Yeah,
as the competition goes on. Yeah, fair enough. So
okay, Mashal, I think we've got 2 franchises left, have we, with players in, and both I think are going to be big. Both are going to be big talking points with the players at each. So I'll let you decide what madness we go for first.
We're going to leave the franchise that has 2 of them to the end, and we're going to go to Santoki's hero and my favorite player to cuss out. If I'm saying that DJ Bravo is lucky to have an IPL contract, arguably Shimron Hetmyer can count himself lucky to have got another chance this year. If you look at what Hetmyer has done, so first year was with RCB, wasn't it? That's where we went to first. Was it RCB? The first year he had an IPL? Yeah.
RCB.
And obviously Delhi last year. The only thing I will say in Shimron's favour is that I don't think RCB or Delhi have used him properly in the 2 years that he's been in IPL. If you look at where he plays for West Indies or even where he would play for Guyana, I do not understand how a franchise would look at him, see what he's done throughout his career, and say, yes, let's not put him at number 3. Hetmyer's got to be in early, and he's got to face as many balls as possible. He's not a finisher. I don't know who told Delhi he's a finisher. So I will give Hetmyer one excuse only, which is that he's been misused. But my patience is running thin with him, and if he's running thin with me, I'm fairly certain if he has a poor IPL this year, he's not getting a contract in 2022. Hetmyer. Oh no, Santoki, go. Sorry.
I'll go first. I think you're right in terms of there's a massive difference between playing at 3 and playing at 5 in IPL, and obviously he's been playing at 5 for Delhi, which doesn't suit his strengths. I think the thing with Hetmyer is, in terms of West Indians, he's the best West Indian against spin, no doubt, without a question. He can play spin better than any West Indian batsman. His potential is there. We've seen him in India for the ODIs and T20s. He's performed against India for West Indies. So franchises will take him because of the potential, similar to Puram. They're just waiting for that one season when it cracks. Everyone knows the potential's there. I think if they do want to get the best out of him and they're smart, they'll move him up to 3 this season and they will get the best out of him. But he's someone who, even if he doesn't perform this season, just based on his potential and the quality he will show, maybe for West Indies at the World Cup, for instance, he will inevitably get another contract. And it's just a case of waiting for him to sort of explode at the IPL level. Obviously, he's getting older, so that needs to come sooner rather than later. But I think Delhi Capitals, I should say, would hopefully see the logic and move him up to 3 this season, and we will get the best out of him, because undoubtedly he's someone who potentially is going to be the leader of the next generation of West Indian white ball players. So think that's where I stand on Hetmeyer.
Kartikeya, before you come in, just because there's a few comments unhappy with what I've said about Hetmeyer, so I just want to remind people of his numbers, okay? For RCB in 2019, he played 5 matches, 75 runs at 18, strike rate 123. Last year for Delhi, 12 matches, 185 runs at 23, strike rate 148. Based on Hetmeyer's ability, that is not good enough given the level of contract and investment in him. That's my critique of him. So it's not me saying Hetmeyer's not a good enough player. Of course Hetmeyer's a good enough player. I personally put him above Puram. That's me personally. But he doesn't, unlike Puram, he doesn't show it enough to justify the level of contract he gets. But I'm willing to accept, as Clive has said here, that he has not been used properly. Kartikeya.
Yeah, so I think you're Hetmeyer's biggest critic, and I've taken the pains to defend him time and again. And yeah, I think last year I didn't know whether we were to cuss out Delhi or cuss out Hetmeyer, because unlike Puran, who came in to play his first season in 2019, he actually played a couple of good knocks and he grabbed his chance. At RCB, Hetmeyer did not grab his chance. I know they didn't use him throughout the season, but I think he got 4 or 5 games at number 3 at the start of the season, and he didn't make use of it. So what made Hetmeyer think he was a... Hetmeyer got a $1 million contract for Delhi. So what made him think he could go into that season overweight and bat the way he did at the start? He actually got a game at number 3 in Delhi's opening game. And he came out and he started trying to smash every ball for 6 after they lost 2 wickets at the top. So I know he's more talented than Puran or whatever you can say, but that talent has to channel into performances at some point. Yeah. And it happens for West Indies too. He comes in and he doesn't take time to get settled in. It works in the CPL, it works in the Super 50 because the quality of bowling is not as good as it is in the IPL or international cricket. And he can come out, he can start hitting from ball 1 and it works out. But when he makes a step up, I think he needs to... Yeah, I think he just needs to improve his game sense, honestly. And if that's going to happen, he probably needs someone to mentor him, whether it is someone in the current team like Gale or Pollard, or whether it's someone from outside the setup. Someone needs to mentor him and help him get to where he needs to get to, because like you said, Santoki, he's going to lead the next generation of West Indies players, and it's only a matter of time. But I think at some point people are going to run out of patience, because in the Sri Lanka series, when Lendl Simmons played a couple of good knocks, everyone was like, oh, Hetmeyer is not going to make it to the World T20 and start in the team. And personally, I think he should start. But if such conversations are coming up after Hetmeyer had a breakthrough in 2018, he kept putting in performances after performances, especially in that international series in India. We shouldn't be having these conversations right now. So I think that's where the criticism comes in for Hetmeyer. I think a lot of you are saying he's got potential, he's going to be a future superstar. We know that, but I think the way other players have developed around him, it's been slow development, because in 2016, if you look at India's team, Rishabh Pant, Ishan Kishan, they played the Under-19 World Cup in 16. And look at where they are now. And look at where Puran is now within the West Indies team. So for someone who keeps getting IPL contracts, who gets opportunities, so many opportunities within the West Indies international team, you can't say it's a lack of resources, or you can't say it's a lack of opportunity either. At some point, it's going to have to come through.
And thanks for Kartikeya for reminding us about the whole saga. For those of you who don't remember, CPL last year, Samuel Badji, who's part of the coaching staff of Delhi Capitals, reminded Hetmeyer he needed to lose weight. He said, I know it's been locked down, but you need to lay off the roti. So I don't know if going to India is going to help him with the abundance of roti there, but definitely with him, you sense it's definitely a sense of mental discipline. Not only in stuff like nutrition, but as Kartikeya referred to earlier, playing the game situations, not always trying to hit everything for 6. So it's that mental awareness, which I think Puran is ahead of Hetmeyer at this stage. But natural talent and ability, you'd say Hetmeyer is further along, but you need a combination of both to succeed. So
ultimately, I think we can all agree that provided, and like I say, provided Delhi use him properly, he owes Delhi, and he probably owes himself a good IPL this season. I won't say good. When I say good, I really mean great. Like, he needs to have the year that Puran had last year, basically. By the end of the tournament, irrespective of what happens to Delhi, we need to be talking about Hetmeyer individually as something that, as for what he did in the tournament. So, we shall see.
Yeah, and I think a good segue as well would be from this. I saw a comment saying, why didn't Delhi pick up Kemo Paul and Shafane Rutherford? So I think before we get onto the final franchise, Kolkata, I think a good way to start would be, were you guys surprised any West Indians weren't picked up in the auction? So off the top of my head, we've got Evan Lewis, Lendl Simmons, O'Shane Thomas, Rutherford, Kemo Paul. Were you guys surprised that Sheldon Cottrell, who was obviously at Punjab last season, didn't do too well? Were there any players who you were surprised were omitted from the draft?
I got 3 players.
Go on.
Only one of them am I really serious about. Evan Lewis, I think, was unlucky to not be a backup opener for someone, genuinely. In the conditions that they're in, I'm surprised nobody went for Evan. I think he's probably surprised as well. Yeah. I thought, this sounds silly, but I thought Rovman might have got a squad opportunity. And I'm not saying Rovman's good enough to start for anyone, but he has improved, and I just thought he might get a squad opportunity somewhere. And this one's going to sound ridiculous.
Not Chandapur.
No, I actually thought he had this one. So I'm admitting this one's stupid, but I actually thought somebody might pick up Darren Bravo. You know. Hear me out. Just as an anchor person, only because of what he did in CPL. I just thought if somebody watched that in what was a low quality tournament, I thought somebody might have thought we might do. But that was
it's a fair shout. He's played. Didn't he play for Kolkata before? Or he's
definitely been there before.
Yeah.
What about you, Tucker? Anyone who miss out?
Yeah, the only serious one would probably be Evan Lewis. I think, he definitely deserves his spot as a backup opener. But in the team's defense, no other openers got picked up in the auction. So he could consider himself unlucky.
Actually, a good question for you guys are you guys concerned? Obviously, we've seen this IPL at the moment being dominated by guys who are reaching senior status. So Chris Gale, Dwayne Bravo, same faces, Pollard, Narayan, Russell, they're all coming into their 30s, in Gale's case, the 40s. Are you guys concerned about the next generation, the amount coming through, the amount of players coming through? It seems to be Puran and Hetmeyer are kind of seen as the two kind of leaders of the pack. But do you think West Indies will be able to sustain the level of success they've had with this older generation, with the new guys coming through?
So last season, I think Kemo, Shafane, O'Shane, Cottrell, and who else?
That was them.
That was them, yeah. So I think they all got contracts. And I think the CPL this year didn't help because it wasn't the best exhibition of T20 cricket. So if those guys got to play on more batting-friendly pitches in the CPL, they could have put their name forward again, but they didn't help themselves and they got pushed out. But I think eventually the talent will come through and they'll get contracts again. So I think it's just a case of cycling around.
Yeah, I think Shafane is probably the problem Shafane's got is that Shafane has definitely got to a level where, no disrespect to other leagues, but the level underneath IPL, he's always going to get a contract. So he'll always play in PSL, he'll always play in BPL, he'll always play in CPL. So Shafane's at that level, but do you know what I think holds him back? He's not in the West Indies team. And every time he gets in it, he fluffs his chance. So I'm not saying that's what an IPL franchise would be looking at, and he didn't play in CPL, did he? I don't remember Shafane in CPL.
No,
he didn't play CPL. So Shafane has to almost have like a standout set of tournaments across the year, or go to the World Cup and do get in the West Indies side. He has to do something bigger than just do well in BPL or whatever it might be, or the Afghan one or whatever it might be. But he has quality. He definitely has quality, but it's just not consistent enough yet to get his breakthrough.
Definitely. So should we, with that, Mashal, should we move to the main event? I mean, this is probably the one the next fan is, Alzari Joseph as well, member for Mumbai.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're talking
right.
about Alzari, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he's a good white ball bowler.
Yeah.
So, yes. So let's end with these two. Who should I go with first? Let's go with Dre Russ. So, Andre Russell. I am surprised at some of the comments I've heard and read about. There's a lot to say about Andre Russell, but I'm surprised that it's almost as if people have written him off. When you look at the numbers that Andre has put up, yes, okay, last year's IPL, okay, fine, whatever, that was atrocious. His CPL was pretty rubbish as well. But effectively, Andre has been playing injured for 2020. For those who have been following what Andre's been doing since the end of, I think it's the Lanka Premier League, he basically went to the States to work with I want to say it's Houston.
No. He worked with
Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
Dallas Cowboys.
Went to the States to work with the Dallas Cowboys. He basically took 2 months off and focused purely on his fitness, trying to work with the best people in the States that he could find to get him in shape. He's dedicated himself to that. He told the West Indies, listen, I can't play for you because this is what I'm on. He was actually scheduled to play for West Indies against Sri Lanka, but COVID knocked him out for that. I think we're going to see a very good IPL from Andre Russell this year. He's basically, if you ignore what he did in CPL and IPL and accept that he was injured, he basically didn't exist last year. And actually, before that, the last time he played was in Sri Lanka. And if you go back to that Sri Lanka series in start of 2020, he demolished the bowling in Sri Lanka. I don't know if anyone remembers that series, but some of the hits he was doing in Sri Lanka were outrageous. So Andre Russell is due a big tournament. What I would like to see is I do not want to see Andre Russell bowl ever again. For his own health, I think he can add value for KKR if he does bowl, but I don't want to see him bowl. And I really want to understand why franchises aren't stopping him. What's wrong with just playing Andre Russell as a batsman? Am I missing something here? Does he not add value as a batsman only? Does
it's
he? It's
not franchises. It's him.
Sorry, come in.
Yeah, it's not franchises. It's him, because what I've heard is he loves bowling, and regardless of what his match state is, he's going to bowl. That's him. So I think someone has to get it into his head that he can be the world's best batsman without bowling.
Yeah. I think what Clive said as well, it annoys me how people have written off Andre Russell. The guy had one bad season, which was basically due to injuries. He is still someone who could change the game at will. Andre Russell's one of the few batsmen in the world. If your side needs 80 runs off the last 5 overs and Russell's coming in, you'd say they were favourites to chase it. He's just got that capability, destructive finisher. Kartikeya said as well, obviously he chooses to bowl. I think that's also partly down to the fact of if you're thinking financially in T20s, it's obviously going to help your repertoire if you can offer that bowling as well. So he's probably thinking from that point of view. But I agree with you, Mashal. I think the bowling at the moment is to his detriment. There's no point in bowling him out. Just have him as a pure destructive finisher. But I think he'll come good. He'll definitely come good. Last season is almost where you just got to ride it off because he was injured. He pushed through it, probably like for the paycheck, essentially, to try and get through, get the games in. If you look at, ironically, I think last season, Sunil Narayan, who we're going to get to, scored more runs than Russell, and Russell took more wickets than Sunil Narayan. So that kind of shows the standards to which both players are falling through full Kolkata and why people are asking questions. But whereas we'll get onto Narayan, whereas we're not sure whether Narayan will be able to regain his previous peak, I think Russell still has it in him. I don't think we'll ever see Russell play to like 37, 38 like Darren Bravo, but I think he has 2-3 years where we can still see him at the pinnacle.
Yeah, I think people forget Russell's 2019 IPL. In 2019, he had the greatest IPL season any cricketer would have after Gale's 2011. I think those are peaks no one can match, not even himself. So I think people expect too much from him. But Andre can fail the entirety of this season and he'll still start the next season. I think that's Andre's statue in T20 cricket right now. And is he going to have a good season? Yes, because, what should I say? people like AB de Villiers, Chris Gale, they've had quiet seasons here and there, and they come out the next season and they're world beaters again. It's the same with Andre. He's not going to fail time and again because now he's fit and his ability is unmatched. So honestly, I don't see where the skepticism comes from because he's in the top 5 T20 batsmen in the world and he's going to come good at some point. And I think he has a point to prove as well because KKR see Andre as a franchise guy. They see him as two players. That's what Venki Mysore, who's their CEO, keeps saying. We can't replace Andre because Andre is essentially two players in our team.
Yeah.
And that's the weight of expectations that Andre has on his shoulders. It's not like Mumbai Indians where Pollard can have a slightly weaker season and they can still pull through. KKR is essentially Andre Russell and he knows the weight on his shoulders and he knows he owes them a season after what happened last year because he feels last year's season was on him. Andre is that kind of guy. So this year with something to prove and improve fitness, I think he's going to be one of the season's MVPs for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think just from a West Indies perspective, if Andre has a good IPL, it doesn't. I'm just saying this, Santoki. It doesn't matter if he doesn't play any T20s for West Indies for the rest of the year. He's still going to the World Cup.
Yeah,
What he does in this IPL is more important than anything else he does in the rest of the year. So people need to understand that he will go to the World Cup if he's fit, as long as he does something.
And I think the thing with Russell is he's shown it when he played the 50 over World Cup in 2019, which was madness considering his state. He's someone he sees his pride in the West Indies, so he's going to want to be in the best shape for the World Cup. So we might see him play the IPL and then not play any T20s. He might opt out of CPL, for instance, to kind of regain his fitness. Because for him, after IPL, the pinnacle of the year is going to be the World Cup. And he's going to make sure that he's ready for it.
100%. So let's wrap this up with our final West Indian in the IPL. And arguably, after Dwayne Bravo and Shimron Hetmeyer, the biggest question marks probably lie over this guy, which is Sunil Narine. Now, for Sunil Narine, there's so many questions I could raise as a kind of like moot points for us to get going with. But the first thing is, I think we need to discuss action. In fairness, Sunil missed some of CPL because he had an injury, a genuine injury, which meant he couldn't bowl. However, if I'm mistaken, guys, and correct me if I've got this wrong, was Sunil called in last year's IPL? Or no, some objections were raised about his action. He carried on in the tournament, but there was objections raised about his action.
Yes, and it was very sketch because they said they reviewed his bowling action through videos and cleared him out.
Right. So IPL cleared him themselves in essence. Sunil did not put himself forward to play in the Sri Lanka T20 series for West Indies because he is worried about the suitability of his action for international. Not suitability, that sounds wrong. He's just not confident in his action international cricket. To me, that translates as I might get called and IPL's coming. That's what that translated to me as, right? So Sunil's going to go to IPL. He knows how to bowl for IPL where he doesn't get called. Okay, cool. That's one issue. So the action's an issue. The second issue is Sunil doesn't take wickets anymore. He can at CPL level because CPL's not as good as IPL. We saw him take some wickets in Super 50, but again, domestic cricket in the West Indies is not as good as IPL. The question for me is, does it matter if Sunil Narine doesn't take wickets? For me, it doesn't matter. As long as his economy's low, and some people say, well, people will just play him out and he won't take any wickets. But does that matter? Kartikeya, let's go to you first.
In the West Indies team or in a CPL team, it wouldn't matter because he's still the best bowler. He's still the best spinner in West Indies. He's still the best spinner for TKR. In the IPL, it would matter because what I think is KKR's opening bowlers don't get them wickets. And in the middle overs, they bank on Narine to bowl tough overs and get them wickets. And he doesn't do that now. So that's where it becomes an issue because I think last season, Narine bowled at the death as well because they couldn't get wickets out of him in the middle overs. So that's definitely a desperation tactic. I don't see teams using spinners at the death often these days, and it seemed like they were running out of patience with him. And see, I think this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but I think Narayan chucks in lower quality tournaments because he doesn't get caught. And when he comes to the IPL, he can't risk it. And that's when he becomes less confident about his action and wickets stop coming. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a concern. And he's going to have Lockie Ferguson and Pat Cummins knocking on the door behind him this season. So, I don't know. Can KKR afford a 0 for 29 spell out of him? I don't think so. And also, I think up to last season, Narayan commanded respect. I think I was telling one of you guys during the Super 50 as well. Narayan goes for none for 35 in his first 5 overs in one of the games. And in the next 5 overs, people play him on for 5 runs or something like that. So Narayan still commands respect from teams. But soon that's going to run out. As his confidence diminishes, teams are going to start seeing him as an opportunity to score runs. So I think at some point, I think he needs to revive his game, whether it's adding more variation, starting to bowl in different phases. But yeah, it's going to be grim this season as well because KKR, if you see the venues that they play on, they mostly play on flat decks. And that's been one of the factors that's catalyzed Narayan's decline. Because in 2014 or 15, KKR played at Eden Gardens and it was a ranked turner. But after that, they relayed the surface and it's now a flat track. And that's played a role in him becoming less of a threat. So, yeah, it's probably going to be another rough season for him.
Does he even, sorry, Sentoki, one thing for me. Does he even, if he makes the team, is he opening? So that's another question I've got. And also, so Owen Morgan and Andre Russell are locked in. They're playing no matter what, right? You surely Lockie Ferguson is locked in. So are you telling me that Narayan is playing above Pat Cummins? I'm not sure Narayan's even in the team this year.
I think Pat Cummins is locked in because they batted him in the top 7 last year, which is ridiculous, but they did that. So
what, are you telling me that Narayan's going to play above Lockie Ferguson?
It's going to happen, I think, because
Wow, okay.
Because their team lacks batting depth. So they might see Narayan as, I don't know, floating option at 3 or 4 to extend their batting. But it would be pointless because I think Lockie definitely adds more value as a package. So
hold on, I forgot about Shakib. What about Shakib Al Hasan? Oh my God, I forgot about him. Wait, Narayan's not playing. Narayan can't be playing this year.
I think the thing is Pat Cummins, they obviously paid $2 million for him, so that he's always going to play. That's how high they value him.
Right.
Lockie Ferguson, as Carter K rightly said, could be more effective, but I think Narayan's got the experience. For me, it's down to Narayan or Shakib, but Shakib, don't forget, has only just come back to cricket after the ban,
good point,
and he didn't have the greatest tournament against West Indies, as we saw. So I think Shakib might have to sit on the bench for a while, and they'll start Narayan, just based on that experience. But I think the crucial thing, what Carter K said with Narayan was right as well. The fear factor's gone. If you think from like 2012 to 2018, when teams faced Narayan, their mentality was, we just need to get through these 4 overs, try and get through this guy, because we don't know what he's going to do. And Calcutta, they played him in the opening power plays, the death overs, which was unheard of for spin bowlers to play death overs for the side. That's how much trust they put in him. That fear factor's gone, partly down to him losing confidence in his action, and just players can sense when another player's insecure and not got that confidence.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing him bowl, like, for instance, he'll bowl 4 overs for 29 runs, not take a wicket, which isn't what you expect from Sunil Narayan. So it's whether he can manage to get back to his old form, or if he stays along this lines, if they just lose, they basically bench him, essentially, because it's not good enough to make the team. I think his role as a pinch hitter at the top of the order, that surprise factor's gone. I don't think he can perform that on a regular basis anymore. Teams have worked him out and what his game is kind of about. So he has to rely once again on being a pure spinner, which means he's got to put up better numbers. So the pressure is on him this season.
Can I just ask Carter K? Let's say he has a middling IPL this year. You see how, like, earlier on I was like, Bravo might be done after this year. I would say that Narayan would never be done in IPL. He'll just have to go to a weaker franchise.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I don't think it's that he's not good enough. I just think he'll have to go to a franchise where he's guaranteed a start.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably going to go to someone like CSK where he gets friendly tracks, where he can start all games. Even and how do I put it? So Narayan's still a smart guy. So when batsmen are attacking him, he's going to find a way to get out of it somehow. And that's how he survived with the death last season. I think he won KKR a couple of games at the death. And I think he bowled very well, despite he might have chucked, I don't know, but he bowled well. So Narayan's somehow going to survive because he's a smart guy. But whether he's going to do better than none for 29 in 4 overs, I don't know.
Indeed. You know what, police? I just looked at the time. We've been at this for just shy of an hour and a half. Those of you who've stayed with us from the start, big up and respect for all of you. Obviously, tomorrow we'll both ourselves and Carter Care will replug this for those who are probably sleeping right now, so you can get a chance to watch it. But guys, I'm going to end it with these last few questions. You just have to give your answer. Obviously, if you're still in the chat and you're still with us, give your answers as well. Of the 9 West Indians we've discussed, in fact, I might just end with one question. Of the 9 West Indians we've discussed, who is the most likely to have the best tournament out of those 9? Think about it before you just give a random answer.
Hetmyer.
Russell.
Who did you say, Carter Care?
Russell.
Russell. Yeah, I'm going to go for Hetmyer just because, as people said, IR stress, IR's out for the season for Delhi Capitals. Hetmyer's going to get a run at number 3. I think it's now or never he's going to put up the numbers.
Is he? There's Steve Smith and Sam Billings. We haven't discussed that, but there's a chance he might not start.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question as well, actually, if he would start. Well, luckily in the crowd, everyone's saying Pollard, Russell or Pollard.
What are you saying, Michelle?
I'm saying Narayan.
Not Gale.
Oh, wow.
No.
You said Gale.
I was thinking about Gale, but no, I think I'm gonna. I wanna believe that Sunil can show people up and still prove he's effective at the highest level. But
if in actual fact, as all 3 of us are West Indian supporters, Sunil Narayan being the best player at IPL is the best thing for West Indies fans because he's going to be crucial at the World Cup. More than if a Russell doesn't play a World Cup, we've got all-rounders to replace it. We've got no one to replace Narayan on Indian pitches. The quality he has. So him having a good IPL is vital for West Indian chances at the World Cup later this year. So we should all be hoping for Narayan performances in the coming IPL, which starts in about 4 days. So Carter K, you looking forward to the IPL kicking off on Friday?
Very excited.
Cool.
For those of you who already don't, obviously go and follow Carter K. He will be tweeting about IPL even in his sleep. So go and follow him at static _A357. Is that right, Carter?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, the static _A357. You lot know where we're at. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here to begin with. It's been an absolute pleasure. Carter, thank you for coming on and adding all the cricket smarts with regards to IPL. Santoki, you know the drill already. Guys and girls who are on here today, we are going to this will be on YouTube, so when we share it tomorrow, for those who didn't get to watch it, do us a favor, retweet, etc. Those are also on it with us as well. Episode 39, the interview with Daniel Bell Drummond, we haven't dropped that tonight. I'm going to drop that tomorrow because we wanted to focus on this one today. So look out for episode 39 of the podcast, which I'll put out tomorrow. But thank you all for jumping in on the chat. Loved all the comments. We'll try and do more of these throughout the tournament. Thank you everyone for coming in. Really, really loved it. Carter K, brilliant as usual. Santoki, and that's me as well, Michelle. Thank you all. Respect and good night.